So last night I did something I've done many times in my life. I went to a bar that accepts Bitcoin in payment and had a secret meeting with anarchists. Who else was at the secret meeting? Former Lehman Brothers traders and multimillionaire successful entrepreneurs. And the topic of the meeting was how the anarchists, capitalists, and finance guys could start an organization to help promote Bitcoin in town. And like many of these meetings, and this isn't made up, this is what I did last night. The anarchist is having like a serious ethical, really like an ethical problem. Like humans shouldn't organize like this, right? And the capitalists are like, how much money do we have to put in to get this going, right? After that, I got to go to a larger meetup, something like 80 people, some of whom flew in. They came from Malaysia, they came from Indonesia, just to kind of meet and talk about the same topic. There's a woman named Zan, who is an entrepreneur in Singapore. She owns one of the first Bitcoin ATMs. I wish I could tell you the address, I don't remember it, but you can go put Singapore dollars in and get Bitcoins back right there. There's colorful characters like a guy named Jason, who's from Australia and mines gold in Papua New Guinea, and wanted to know, could I somehow help him turn $3 million a month of gold into Bitcoin? To which the answer is no, I'm sorry, I can't. So this kind of thing is happening all over the world, in almost every country, really. And I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about what the history is, and what does it mean to you who are largely involved with engaging in audiences, monetizing content, doing all the things about talking to people and getting people talking that you guys do. Now, I'm not a media expert, but I would say cautiously that I'm a Bitcoin expert, so excuse me. Please take anything I have to say about media with a huge grain of salt. So if we go back, the first transaction ever done in Bitcoin, does anybody know what it is? The first money for some hard good transaction? Have you guys heard of the pizza transaction? Okay. So in 2009, a paper was put out, an academic paper, a very high quality academic paper, and it claimed to solve a problem that no one knew how to solve before. And the problem was this: how can two people who've never met just exchange data, just information with each other, and without any third party, successfully transfer value? Successfully. So can we have money without a bank? Can we have money without a government? And no trust, no mutual trust. And that sounds hard to do, and in fact, it turns out it was hard to do. This paper is very, very high quality. Bill Gates called it a technological tour de force. Eric Schmidt from Google said basically the same thing. This is just a fundamental innovation, a very interesting one. Published in 2009, open sourced software around it, started a whole web community, named it Bitcoin. And interestingly, no one knows who it is. So the paper was written by someone called Satoshi Nakamoto. That's certainly what's the word I'm looking for? A pseudonym. And to this day, the media has generated many, many hits, purchases of Newsweek magazines and online clicks speculating as to who Satoshi is. So the scheme went like this. You need some way to secure transactions and make sure no one is double spent. Usually we use a bank for that. Like if I write a check, the bank checks my signature. At least that's what I was taught when I was little. We now know they don't. And they post it to the account. If I've written too many checks, the bank will put them in order and bounce one and say, no, you tried to spend money you don't have. All this has to happen, if you want no bank in the middle, it has to happen in a decentralized way. People have to agree to kind of come in and do this together. So there's a decentralized way of doing this. People who help secure the network are called miners. They are issued currency. Satoshi was clearly someone who thought inflation was bad for whatever reason, and so one of the promises that the protocol made was that half of all possible Bitcoins would be issued every 4 years. They come out every 10 minutes, and when it started, 50 Bitcoins were issued every 10 minutes. At the end of 2013, we went to 25 Bitcoins. No, 2012, excuse me. At the end of 2012, we went to 25 Bitcoins every 10 minutes, and then about 2016, it'll go to 12 and a half and so on. So if you're counting and are really good at math, and you happen to know that Bitcoin has 8 decimals, it can go down to 0.00001 Bitcoins. If you punch in your marketing calculators, you'll see the last Bitcoin will be issued in the year 2140, and after that there will be no more. I didn't do that math myself, I had someone do it for me. There will be a total of about 21 million Bitcoins. So Satoshi put this open source code out, which is not patent protected. He said, if you all join me in mine, you can make Bitcoins. I have no idea what they'll be worth, but I can promise you that it will be much harder to get them later than it is now. And people like this plan. Now, one of the other things it does is it separates out identity from transaction verification. So you can identify yourself in Bitcoin, but you don't have to. And I'll show you what a Bitcoin address looks like, which is kind of like a bank account in a little bit. So people love this. Privacy nerds liked it. Nerds liked it. People who wanted to mine liked it. People who were worried about inflation, which if you recall, 08, 09, these are big worries, right? And a lot of the world. And a community started. And people started mining and having a good time and talking on these forums. And finally someone was like, look, if this is really going to be of value, we've got to make a transaction of some sort. And so someone posted on the Bitcoin Talk forums and said, I would like pizza. And if you send me 10,000 Bitcoins, no, I will send you 10,000 Bitcoins if you get 2 pizzas delivered to my home in Florida. And that offer stood for a couple months till someone was like, fine, I'll do this. And so two pizzas were purchased for 10,000 Bitcoins. A couple months later, a market opened, and the first trades happened at around 5 cents per Bitcoin. Today, Bitcoins are worth $600. So if you're doing the math, that pizza was like $3 million per pizza, because there were 2. And going down as like one of the most expensive single food purchases in history, I think. And the rise of the price and the story and just all of the things that have happened to Bitcoin have made it a very, very engaging news story. And I think that's probably where you guys come in. I'm trying to think what else I want to say by way of introduction. I came to Bitcoin shortly after the pizza transaction and before the first markets opened and tried to get the guy to do the pizza transaction with me, but he wouldn't do it. So I'm short several $1 million, sadly. Let me see what else I want to say. Okay, so there are right now millions of people worldwide who own Bitcoin. Does anyone here own Bitcoin? Oh, hello, thank you. What's your name? Vivian? Nice work. I always like when no one owns Bitcoin because it means I think some of you will buy it and then that's good for me. So I don't mind. I will probably give away some Bitcoin by the end of the talk, so have your smartphones out and we'll see what happens. So millions of Bitcoiners worldwide. Now there's no marketing budget for Bitcoin. Most journalists I talk to say that their most clicked on, read, forwarded story of the year is often a Bitcoin story. So there's intense media interest, the public likes it. Pricewaterhouse just put out an interesting report which said that last year Bitcoin had as many social media and other media mentions, like just kind of, you guys have some word for it, I don't know what it is, score or whatever, that equals all of GM's brands put together globally, okay? And that's pretty amazing. That is pretty amazing that this thing that is just a complete decentralized mess of insanity on the ground turns into this level of engagement globally, right? And I have a couple ideas for how you guys might want to tap or and engage with that community at the end. So actually, can you guys throw up that slide I got? Okay, so this is the Bitcoin Foundation's donation page. And I just wanted to show you a little bit about it. On the right is the part that's interesting. So you've got here this make a donation. And this is actually like a PayPal address or a SEPA deposit address or something like this for Bitcoin. And there's a computer-friendly way to put it up there, which is this QR code that could be scanned by any smartphone that has a Bitcoin wallet on it. And then there's that long string, and you guys see it says 1 BTC ORG, blah, 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 blah. That's a Bitcoin address. Now, a Bitcoin address is easy to make. The computer can make them very, very quickly. You just take a short, private key, it's called, some random numbers, turn it into this thing. That's safe to give out and tell people, pay me here, and you can put that anywhere. So when you look at that compared to a standard donation form, a couple things show up for me. One is you don't need to fill out a form anymore. Bitcoin lets you pay without worrying about identity. It lets you pay without worrying about really anything about the person who's paying. You can trust any payment that comes in, at least as clearing. Now, I'm sure during the Q&A time you'll have questions about that, but for now you can see this is a new wave. This is the new wave of payments, of monetization. You scan and go, just like that. The other thing is you can make a lot of these. So the Bitcoin Foundation has one address really per not donation, but membership that comes in, and they'll all look a little bit different. So when you talk about a Bitcoin address, I just want you to have in your mind, it's just like a wiring address or something like that. I've got one on my phone, and you can make one yourselves using a piece of web software or just software on your phone. Now, when you make them, you actually, the Bitcoin world calls them wallets. And it's a little bit more like owning your own bank. So you download enough software to make wire-to-able addresses in Bitcoin, and then you're in control of it. This just takes our heads a little while to get around this. But later we'll see, you guys can leave this up, but we may scan and donate to the Bitcoin Foundation live as well. And what's interesting about that is I'm here, I'm on stage, I'm in Singapore, I can send money to the Bitcoin Foundation during our conversation, from just a picture. And so it doesn't matter really where the Bitcoin Foundation is. It can receive that money anywhere. And if you think about that, a woman in a village in Africa or India could also receive money instantly, right? So there's a huge financial inclusion element to Bitcoin that I think it really matters. So the foundation's just about to kind of rebrand and relaunch our vision and values. And for us, the fundamental thing is that freedom to transact economically is a human right. So often things reduce that right. Maybe poverty hits it in some way. It could be overly controlling government system. It could be that hyperinflation hurts you from engaging in the global economy. Those are all things that Bitcoin lets you do just by kind of punching through all these other systems and letting you pay directly, just essentially by doing math and cryptography. So it can be hard to understand, but I just wanted to help you guys visualize. That's all it is. That's all it looks like. It's just an address and a little bit of computer math that will let you pay to that. So one thing I hear sometimes. We have the global economy. We have, you guys probably, you're in Asia. Many of you are dealing with many, many countries, different payment systems, different monies, all this. And Bitcoin's pretty great. Like it lets you pay someone without trusting them, like I was saying. I don't have to give my credit card number to anyone if I make a payment. And if you stop for a second and think about e-commerce, it is insane. It is insane that we enter our credit card numbers and give like the ability to spend our own money to merchants all over the world. That's crazy. Now, we have banks that protect us from that risk, and in some countries, you have no risk at all, and some you have some risk. But we do end up paying for the privilege of that with enhanced fees and other things. We have large-scale identity theft, like the Target theft is the most recent one in the States. 100 million plus cards and identities are stolen, and so we have this kind of like just the way e-commerce started and the payment systems we had at the time. We have this world where we pay with credit card and give someone on the internet our credit card number every day. It is not sensible, right? What you get with Bitcoin is you don't have to do that. You can pay without giving anyone the right to spend any more money on your behalf. But you can also, you cut through boundaries. So someone in Mongolia could make the same payment that I could make, right? And so one thing that's interesting, I think, on any kind of internet monetization questions at all is that you could accept payments anywhere in the world, from anywhere in the world, and without having to do expensive payment integrations. We talk in Silicon Valley about the long tail, parts that aren't in the sweet spot of your market curve. Bitcoin really opens up opportunities there, and I think it will continue to as more and more people use it. What else do I want to say? I've got a good amount of time for questions, which I'm assuming you guys will have. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about regulatory and then a couple of my thoughts as to what you might do with this. And then should I give some Bitcoins away? Does anyone want that? No, come on. If you talk to investors, they're like, oh my God, get me to the front. I need $2 from you so bad. Okay, all right, we'll give some Bitcoins away. So let me talk about just like, for many Bitcoiners, Bitcoin is their religion. And I mean that quite seriously. So I will receive emails that are borderline illegal, threatening me based on policy statements I've made. People really, really care about this. And you guys are often in the position of making stories, selling stories, right? This is some of what you do, or using stories to get to an audience or to monetize an audience. To the extent that a global brand can engage with integrity with Bitcoin, you will tap an incredibly aggressive group of individuals. I mean, they will work very, very hard for you. And so, I was just kind of, this is where I'm not a marketer, but I was thinking, well, like even a global brand that matches charity donations to a Bitcoin charity. So this QR code could go out on the web in an ad. It could go in a print magazine. It could go anywhere, and Bitcoiners could scan and pay immediately. You don't need a payment system set up to do it. It just goes out. So partnering up with charities where any Bitcoin donations that come in would be matched by one of your brands, I think would be a smart thing to do. It would be a fairly cheap campaign to run. You would see if Bitcoiners liked it or not. They donate a lot of money. Bitcoiners, many old-time ones have gotten quite wealthy, and they give away their money, they donate it, and they want to make big press pushes. So I think that's an area where, if you think there's some kind of way to put your brand together with that, I would recommend you think about it. You'll have a lot of fun on Twitter, at the very least. One of my pet theories about paywalls is that it's not the money that's the problem. It's two things. One is you're getting charged every month, and who knows if you want to do that. And then the second is you have to give your identity. Now, you guys like identities. You want to keep marketing to people. But I have I could pay. You could have a paywall system with Bitcoin where you pay it, and it disappears immediately and shows you the content. Or maybe a browser extension just pays as you go per page. I think there's some very, very interesting, maybe like midterm possibilities for how content is actually delivered and monetized. And on the one hand, that's nothing new. Proposals like Millicent in the 90s, it was going to be micropayments were going to change the internet and destroy advertising like 20 years ago, and here we all are. But on the other hand, this actually works, and people do use it. And so I think we'll start to see some different content delivery and content monetization schemes. I was just reading a blogger this week pulled all his ads. He's not a big blogger, but he's been writing on Hacker News, Y Combinator News about it. He pulled all of his ads off, his AdWords stuff off, and just has Bitcoin donation links on his content. He's going to do it for 6 months and tell people what he gets, right? So there are probably implications for the paywall side of life, just because the payment friction here is so much easier, it's so much less, and it leaves power in the hands of the person paying, because you can't set up recurring payments with Bitcoin. So those are two just kind of, again, worth what you paid for them thoughts about how this might impact you guys. So let's give away some money, and then we've got time for questions. Well, let me say one more thing. I heard a couple thoughts about regulatory and governments earlier. Anarchists do not like when I say this, but I think some regulation's great. Good regulation's good. We have sort of a history in Bitcoin of all these different voices, and somewhat no government involvement at all. Now, citizens who think that their state provides some value to society as a whole, would generally not agree with that statement, right? So we'd say, well, bad people can do bad things, and that's what laws are for, and enforcement is for, and all of this. And so I think overall, and this is one of the main things the foundation does, is engage with regulators and law enforcement. We're actually the media frenzy around regulation is very overblown. In general, governments have been very proactively and productively engaged with this. And you can just every time you meet or talk with regulators, some are better than others, but in general, they understand that this is a fundamental technology innovation. Humans know how to send money over data now. We did not know how to do that before. We could tell a bank to send money over data, but we couldn't actually send money over data until now. That technology won't go away. It will change many, many things about how we work and live on the internet. And so overall, I think we're seeing pretty productive regulatory right now. Okay, so who should I give money to? You need okay, oh, beautiful, my people, thank you. Okay, so you need to sign up at a website called Xapo.com, Xapo.com. A man named Wences, who's a very successful entrepreneur, just launched it this week, so try it out. So once you're signed up at Xapo.com, we'll do some questions and then let me know, and we'll give someone some money. So that's it.
That's it. I suppose this is the thing about virtual currencies. You also need to have virtual gratification, meaning to say, aren't you going to give them something? How are you going to give it to them?
Well, once they sign up at Xapo.com, we'll give someone some money. But they have to have a Bitcoin wallet. They have to be able to receive the money somehow.
Why do you always have to spell these names in ways that we can never remember? Xapo. So okay, so you sign up at Xapo.
Sure, yeah.
And then how does Xapo know that the people who just raised their hands should get some money?
Well, they're going to go do the sign up. It's actually, who's there now doing it? It's anyone? Yeah, it's pretty easy. Yeah, it's like 4 or 5 fields. There we go, yeah.
Okay.
And then from there, we'll go from there.
Okay, please excuse my very layman, ignorant type of questions, but you can tell by my grey hair that I've been around for a while and can't really get my head around all of this. So once they've signed up at Xapo, they'll automatically have Bitcoins credited to their Bitcoin wallet?
They actually will, because Xapo is giving away free money right now. So they'll have 3 US cents worth of Bitcoin in their web wallet as soon as they sign up.
3 US cents.
But
I was about to ask how many pizzas.
I will top that up. Not many pizzas.
Right.
I will give someone enough to buy a pizza.
Okay. Can I just? We have a question over there.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
He's in.
Okay, we'll wait. We're going to give people time, and we'll figure it out. And
ladies and gentlemen, applause for the gentleman in the pink shirt. He's got 3 cents to his name. Hopefully a few more dollars than that. Again, please excuse me for taking you back a little bit, because you live in this world and you kind of do this every day. You might be surprised to learn that most of us don't. So I'm just trying to, again, understand how all of this works. So in essence, this whole bit about mining, about getting your computers to generate Bitcoins to begin with, is that what everybody here still has to do? Or can they just sign up somewhere and get free money all the time?
Yeah, mining is, again, the process of securing the network, and you get paid by the Bitcoin network for helping secure it. I would urge you not to do that. It's quite technical and complex. Most analyses of Bitcoin mining show that it doesn't make you very much money. So if you want Bitcoins, I would suggest you do with almost anything you want that has value is you buy it. You could buy it from someone who has it. You could go online. Companies like Coinbase.com in the US are reputable places where you can buy and sell Bitcoins, and you'd use a provider.
Well, how do you have to put some money in, presumably, to be...
If you want to buy something, you're going to have to spend some money.
Some real money this time.
Well, real is a matter of a semantic conversation
some dollars.
for later, my good sir.
You have to use your credit card.
You'll have to use some fiat currency of some sort, yeah.
Some fiat currency.
Government-issued currency.
Government-issued, and they call that fiat currency.
It is true, they do.
Italian lira? I thought they went out a long time ago.
That was also by fiat, but is no longer around.
All right, so you've got to spend money to get it, and then you can spend it.
Sure. At
the end of the process, though, you still need to, quote-unquote, withdraw that money back into a fiat
Not necessarily. So large brands in the U.S. Let you spend Bitcoin directly. Overstock.com is kind of like a large discount retailer in the U.S. You can buy anything on their site with Bitcoin. Electronics companies, WordPress. There's tens of thousands of merchants that accept Bitcoin directly, where you wouldn't actually even have to get it back. If you made a lot of money at it, which some people have, then you may want to sell some of them, right, to capture some gains back in the thing you pay your mortgage with rather than the Bitcoins. So people will then do that.
Okay, but the input still has to be money at this point. So again, please forgive my ignorance, but why not just...
I'm being set up by a...
Why not just use PayPal and pay by credit card?
Why
do the hop into Bitcoin
so there's
first?
a few reasons. One is that Bitcoin, if you like the story, and the story is that less and less will be issued, it's secure, and that as adoption goes up, demand will go up, and the price will rise. If you like that story, you don't get that story from dollars or what have you. Another way to say that is, some people may want to make a bet and invest or bet on this, right? So that's one reason you might choose to hold it. The other reason is that PayPal can freeze your account. They can seize your funds. They're very, very hard to work with. If anyone here has had a small business dealing with PayPal, I would guess that you hate them.
Is that true? Before you go on, you hate PayPal? Who here uses PayPal and doesn't hate them?
So, but spending on PayPal is great. Spending on PayPal is great. As a merchant, accepting payments on PayPal is much harder. Yeah.
Okay. Who here is a merchant, accepts payment on PayPal and hates them? Loves them?
Just you.
Sorry, Peter. Well, clearly
just wait till
£1,000
worth of purchases are frozen because they thought that, they thought the customer's story about how they paid you and didn't get the thing is not your story. I mean, it's just like anything. You add another relationship into the middle of the transaction. Sometimes that's great. You want FDIC insurance or whatever the equivalent is in your country on your bank deposits. That makes you feel comfortable and that's helpful. Great. Sometimes that's not what you want.
In Singapore, that's SDIC. So, okay, but at the end of the day, you still need to then translate the money back into hard currency.
Only if you want dollars.
But for example, you talked about the human right to financial inclusion, which has resonated with some of you on Twitter. But at the same time, that poor person in India or in Africa that you talked about, at the end of the day, they still have to put food in their mouths and that of their children. Are they really going to be able to use Bitcoin in the middle of a jungle to do that?
It depends. There's a woman in Botswana right now who's working on doing just that, bringing Bitcoins in. And actually, moving paper money around rural, developing world areas is not very safe. I mean, it is not a good system or solution. You've got someone who moves across the country to do day labor, has to get cash back to their village. This is not great, and that's why we have some of these centralized systems like M-Pesa in Kenya and other things that are so popular. This is another layer that would let anyone remit from anywhere in the world directly into that village. So it's going to vary as to how useful it is, and it will grow over time. But people are working on just exactly that, just doing those transactions.
Okay, I'm not the only one asking questions today, ladies and gentlemen. Who has a question? Gentleman over there. Anybody else? We'll get the microphone to you in that corner over there.
Hi there.
Hello. Could you just stand up so we can see you?
Hi.
Good morning.
Mark from the Wall Street Journal. You mentioned there about not giving the ability to collect data. From a publisher's perspective, that's going to be a big challenge, particularly for our marketers, because obviously that's our proposition.
Yeah.
Can you just talk through the experience you've got in the US? You're working with the Chicago right now, with the Sun, right, in the Chicago Times. Can you just talk through what the Bitball is, what's happening there and how it's working and what the proposition might be for publishers in collecting data and sharing?
Yes, but I'd only be making things up because I don't know much about the Chicago Times. Can you pay their paywall with Bitcoin? Is that the... Okay, yeah, so it's happening already. I'm not really here to work out all your new business models that come from this disruptive technology, but I can't tell you a lot more about that. But I'm not surprised they're trying it. I would way rather spend a little bit with Bitcoin to get through a paywall than give my subscription information to a publisher. Now, you guys got to decide. You're the math geniuses. Is that a good or bad trade-off given all the things you lose because it's harder to market to me, right? I don't know whatever. There's large quantitative analysis groups that'll be figuring that out and tweaking it. So we should give some money away because they're saying please wrap up on my notes.
That's all right. I'm in charge here.
Oh,
we have another. Sorry, guys. Don't cut me off, all right? Yes, we have a question over there, I think.
Yes, sorry. I don't want to be in between giving free money away, but how has the Mt. Gox scandal and the malware issue of Bitcoin wallet theft affected Bitcoin?
Yeah, so, and to give you guys a little bit of background, what was at one time the largest Bitcoin exchange where you bought and sold Bitcoins recently announced, the CEO recently announced that he'd lost 750,000 Bitcoins, maybe $500 million worth. Can't find them. And I have that problem all the time, actually. So where did that go? So, and joking aside, it's actually a huge impact, an emotional impact on people, consumers. Probably hundreds of thousands lost money. And in fact, there was a well-publicized suicide with this woman named Autumn in Singapore, which was super tragic, very shortly after this announcement. And we don't know how related they are, right? So, I would point to circumstances like that and say those are the reasons you'd want some regulatory oversight. They're good reasons to help police any new economy like this. I'm hopeful some of those coins will be recovered. We'll find out what the story is. That said, like Zappo, which I just sent you to, is insurance, I believe from Lloyd's. So you actually can have your deposits insured, and we'll have better and better operators this year that are working on the kinds of solutions that people need.
Good question. Thank you. Any other questions? Question at the back. And while the microphone's coming to her, can I just ask in relation to the micro payments, because something that Peter has touched on is how hard it is to get people to pay, let's say, for an article. It seems ridiculous to charge them $2 and then they have to get out their credit card. Would you be willing to give people a taste, if you are in the content business, would you be willing to give people a taste for a couple of Bitcoins? Content taste. Nope, Peter, they're all after data. Yes, good morning.
Hi, morning. I'm Vivian from Point Logic. So we know there are lists of other virtual currencies like Litecoins or like name coins. How do you see those virtual coins? Do you see them as a challenge, or yeah? What's your view on that?
Okay, you guys are now in on like actual Bitcoin industry conversation. I love it, Vivian. There are, it's open source, but just as a little more background, Bitcoin's open source. You can fork the code, make your own copy of it, and do whatever you want. There are now thousands of alternate tries and takes on Bitcoin. So Vivian, my answer is most of them I think are not actually worth that much. They're just copies, just to copy things. It's okay. There's some I think very innovative ones that I am looking out for myself. Like Ethereum is one that has a lot of like a very broad set of possibilities. I wouldn't. My personal belief is that it's so hard to get one of these right that Bitcoin's likely to be the most valuable going forward. But I think we'll see, and it's a free market at that level as well, a market of ideas. And so, I also love Dogecoin, which is the Reddit joke currency, represented by that Shiba Inu dog, and they do a lot of charity work, and they give away. They based it really high, so you can give away like 6 million Dogecoin for like $10 or something. So I love those guys. I think they're great, and we start to see this kind of art and other stuff happening in this space, which is a good sign, I think.
More questions? Earlier on, when we were talking, you were saying that the problem that some of these other virtual currencies have had, such as cherry credits and various other forms of virtual currencies that preceded Bitcoin, that the reason they didn't fly is because they didn't really have, there wasn't a lot of buzz around them. There was no trading, for example. There was no possibility of speculating on them. Arguably, they were too stable. Can you elaborate a little bit on the need for speculators to come in to really make this work? Yeah,
and if you're from financial markets, the more different parties you bring to the market, the better price discovery you get, the more you understand what it's worth, right? So it's interesting. I mean, I do think Bitcoin's popular because these big price rises and drops are fun and exciting, and that's one reason people have gotten into it. And so, if you're going to start your own virtual currency, I would see if you could arrange to have some excitement along with it. You'll get more people interested.
I also saw online that there is a company that's invested $10 million, that is fiats, I suppose, to build
real money.
To build a hedge fund, and you're also looking at developing a hedge fund. Does that signal that, again, there's possibly more money to be made from trading the currency as opposed to transacting and doing the boring commercial stuff with it?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, right now, you have to ask yourself how much a total of whatever Bitcoin will end up doing, how much of it has it done already, right? And because of how the issuance works, if your answer to that is not much, it's still got a long way to go, then investment vehicles aimed at the underlying are probably pretty interesting right now, as opposed to businesses that want to tap the transaction volume. But these are all things that smart minds are working on, and lots of money is going into this year.